3 minutes ago, Pam Bondi was facing off with a constitutional law professor, constitutional law at Georgetown for 25 years. The lead manager of Trump's second impeachment trial, word for word, "I will teach you the rules," to the United States Attorney General, live on air, while all of America is watching. Bondi's response? "You are experiencing Trump syndrome. This is a moment that will..."
Right now, you are about to watch the Attorney General of the United States get completely exposed, live, on camera, in front of the whole country. If you have ever wanted to see someone in power get held accountable in real time, stay right here, because this is exactly that moment. And if this kind of raw, unfiltered political breakdown is what you want to see more of, hit that subscribe button right now, because we cover every moment they try to hide. Let me set the scene for you. Pam Bondi, the sitting United States Attorney General, walks into a congressional hearing. She is the top law enforcement officer in this country. She runs the Department of Justice. Her entire job, her only job, is to know the law and enforce it. Sitting across from her is Jamie Raskin, Harvard Law graduate, constitutional law professor at Georgetown for 25 straight years. He ran Trump's second impeachment trial. He has written books about the Founding Fathers. He has trained an entire generation of lawyers and lawmakers. This is not a man who loses arguments about the law. This is a man who literally teaches the law for a living. And what happened in that room? Raskin had to stop everything, pause the entire hearing, and explain to the United States Attorney General how a congressional hearing works. Not constitutional theory, not legal strategy, the basic rules. How a hearing works. Question and answer. That is it, in front of all of America, on live television, word by word. And Bondi's response? She looked Raskin dead in the face and said, "You are experiencing Trump syndrome. Stop, right there. Let that land." The Attorney General of the United States was just taught the rules of a congressional hearing like a first-year student, and her answer was a political taunt. No legal argument, no facts, no defense of anything she did, just a taunt. This is not a small moment. This is not politics as usual. This is a moment that tells you everything you need to know about where we are right now. Now let me walk you through exactly what happened, because every detail matters here. Raskin started with a simple, direct question. He asked about the victims, Epstein's victims, the survivors. He asked one thing: how much do their rights matter? How much do their voices count in this process? He stopped talking. He looked at Bondi. He waited. Before Bondi could even respond, Raskin laid out the full picture. The congressman from Kentucky had just brought up a critical point. A large number of these survivors made a personal decision, a deeply painful, deeply private decision, to never reveal their names, not to the public, not to the media, not even to their own families. These women carried this secret for years, some of them for decades. No one in their personal lives knew what had happened to them. And that decision was communicated to Congress. Congress heard it. Congress acted on it. They passed the federal law, not a memo, not a guideline, a real law signed by the President of the United States that said clearly the names of these victims are protected, period. No disclosure, no exceptions. That was the law. Then Raskin's voice hardened, and he delivered the gut punch. The law said protect the names. Bondi published the names. That is it. That is the whole story. The law said one thing. Bondi did the exact opposite. Not just the names, the phone numbers, the home addresses, the personal information, all of it thrown out into the public, online, for anyone to find. This is not a gray area. This is not open to interpretation. This is a direct, documented, clear violation of federal law. And Raskin laid it out so plainly that there was nowhere to hide. Then Raskin dropped the real bomb. He asked the question everyone in that room was already thinking. He said, if Donald Trump can theoretically walk away with $10 billion from the Department of Justice, then how much should these victims get? He stopped. He let the silence fill the room. Think about what he just said. Trump, under the current framework, could potentially pull $10 billion out of the Justice Department. $10 billion. And these women, their names were ripped out from under federal protection and thrown onto the internet. Their addresses, where they live, where they sleep, where they are trying to put their lives back together, published for the world to see, their phone numbers leaked, their privacy destroyed. And what do they get? Nothing. Not a dollar, not an apology, not a single acknowledgement that the law protecting them was shattered. While Trump could be looking at $10 billion, these women got zero. Their old abusers can now find them. Their harassers can look them up in seconds. Their lives have been put in real physical danger. And the Department of Justice, the institution that was supposed to protect them, is the one that exposed them. That is the reality. That is what Raskin laid out. And he wanted every person in that room and every person watching at home to feel exactly how wrong that is. And that is when Bondi snapped. She did not answer the question. She did not even try. Instead, she blew up, she pivoted hard, she jumped to something that had nothing to do with anything being discussed. Do you know who Chase Mulligan is? She demanded. You're very obsessed. Raskin froze for a second, genuine confusion on his face. What's the relevance? And he was right to ask, because there was none. Zero. They were talking about Epstein's victims. They were talking about federal law being broken. They were talking about women whose names and addresses were dumped online in violation of a federal statute. And Bondi's response was to bring up a random name from Raskin's congressional district. Who is Chase Mulligan? A local case. Someone accused of targeting minors in online chat rooms in Raskin's district. Someone with absolutely no connection to Epstein, no connection to the victims, no connection to anything being discussed in that room. Raskin tried to pull things back on track. Bondi kept going. She did not stop. She did not slow down. She did not listen. So Raskin stepped back into professor mode, calm, firm, controlled. I will teach you the rules again. And Bondi cut him off. She raised her voice. She pointed. You are obsessed with Donald Trump. You're experiencing Trump syndrome. The room went dead quiet. Let me ask you something directly, and I genuinely want to know what you think. Drop it in the comments right now. Why does Bondi go to Trump every single time? Every question. Victim compensation, federal law violations, hearing rules, and the answer is always Trump syndrome. Why? What does she gain from that? Is she protecting someone? Is she running out the clock? Is she just hoping people get tired and walk away? Tell me what you think, because this pattern is not random. This is a strategy, and people need to be talking about it, okay? Back to the room. Bondi just screamed Trump syndrome at a constitutional law professor in the middle of a formal congressional hearing. Everyone in that room went still. Staffers, journalists, lawmakers, everyone stopped. Because what they just watched made no sense if you expect the Attorney General to behave like the Attorney General. Raskin kept his composure. You could see it on his face, the frustration, the controlled anger, but he held it. He turned to the chair and said flatly, Mr. President, I want my time back. The chair agreed. He gave Raskin back the time Bondi had burned with her deflections and interruptions. And then Raskin did something powerful. He stopped talking to Bondi. He turned toward the cameras. He looked directly at the American people. I want the whole country to look at this, he said, because this, as the United States Attorney General, whose job is to enforce the law. He paused. And then he said the line that is going to follow Bondi for the rest of her career. We have never had a witness who so completely misunderstood our rules and could not conform their behavior to them. Read that again. Let it register. Raskin has sat through hundreds of hearings. He has questioned generals, CEOs, cabinet members, intelligence directors. He has seen hostile witnesses. He has seen evasive witnesses. He has seen evasive witnesses. He has seen people who are unprepared, confused, or deliberately obstructive. Not one of them, in his entire career, broke the rules this openly, this consistently, this shamelessly. Not one. And then Raskin did something that should have never been necessary. He explained the rules, not complicated law, not constitutional theory. He explained how a hearing works. To the Attorney General, Miss Bondi, here's how it works. We ask you questions and you answer them. A 12-year-old in civics class knows this. You get asked a question, you answer it. That is the entire rule. It is that simple. But he went further. He looked Bondi straight in the eye and said, and if you go off on an unrelated topic, switch subjects, start reading statistics, start talking about things that have nothing to do with the question, then we take our time back. And at that point, you need to be quiet. You have no choice. You need to be quiet. Look at Bondi's face during this moment, blank, empty. No sign that any of it is landing. No sign that she cares. A professor with 25 years of experience is explaining elementary classroom rules to the top law enforcement official in the United States. And she is just sitting there. That image, that one image, tells you everything about what is happening to American institutions right now. Raskin pushed forward. He was not done. He had the most important question still to ask. He told Bondi members of Congress went to the DOJ and reviewed the Epstein files on DOJ computers. What they found was serious, hard evidence, documents, names, criminal conduct, real crimes documents, real crimes documented sitting in those files. So Raskin asked, will you form a joint task force? DOJ, governors, state attorneys general, local prosecutors, all working together to investigate the crimes against these victims and the more than 1,000 others just like them. This was not a partisan attack. It was a practical, lawful request. The DOJ is not doing its job. State governments have the power to act. Local prosecutors can open investigations. They can work together. New York, Florida, New Mexico, the Virgin Islands, every state where crimes were committed. One coordinated effort to finally pursue justice for people who've been waiting for years. Simple question, yes or no, will you form a task force? Raskin handed Bondi the floor. Her answer, Chase Mulligan. Again, the exact same name, the exact same pivot, the exact same tactic. A local case from Raskin's district that has nothing to do with Epstein. Nothing to do with victims' rights, nothing to do with the task force, nothing to do with any of it. And then she went further. She turned to the committee chair, a Republican, her own ally, and essentially told him that Raskin was embarrassing him. She looked at the man running the hearing, a man from her own party, and used him as a prop to attack Raskin. Somebody from her own team, somebody who was supposed to be on her side. That move alone tells you how desperate she was. Let's slow down and be very clear about what just happened. Strip away all the noise and look at the tactic. Raskin asked a real question with a real legal foundation. Bondi could not answer it, so she did what every person does when they have no defense. She attacked. She changed the subject. She threw Chase Mulligan into the room like a smoke grenade to break Raskin's focus and put him on defense instead. This is not an accident. This is a well-known tactic. When you cannot defend what you did, you make the conversation about something else. You make it personal. You make the other person look like the problem. But Raskin has spent 25 years in rooms like this. He knows every move in the playbook. He was not going anywhere. Now let's talk about the numbers. Because the numbers are where the story gets truly disturbing. Congress requested 6 million Epstein files. The law required those files to be handed over. What did they get? 3 million. Half. The other 3 million are still locked away, classified, hidden from the congressional oversight that the law demands. The victims' names, which the law said must be protected, were put out in public. The perpetrators' names, which the public has every right to know, were kept hidden. The law said the exact opposite on both counts, and Trump's name, it shows up in those released files over 1 million times. More than 38,000 references across 5,000 separate documents, 1 million times. And when Raskin presses the Attorney General on that reality, when he asks the person whose job it is to enforce the law about why the law is being turned inside out, her answer is Trump syndrome. That is the response of the nation's top law enforcement officer. A taunt, a political slogan. That is all she has. Raskin had every right to be angry. He earned that anger. 25 years of teaching the law, a career built on the Constitution. He handled the Trump impeachment trial under the most intense pressure imaginable. And on this day, he had to sit at that table and tell the chief prosecutor of the United States, slowly, clearly, like speaking to someone who has never been in a formal setting before, you need to be quiet. You have no choice. You need to be quiet. No one should ever need to say that to a cabinet official. A Secretary of State would never need that reminder. A defense secretary would never need that explanation. Any professional witness in any hearing anywhere knows that basic rule before they even sit down. But Bondi is not a normal witness. She showed us that beyond any doubt. Here is the exchange that defines this entire hearing. Read it once, and you will remember it for a long time. Raskin, how much compensation should these victims receive? Bondi, do you know who Chase Mulligan is? Raskin, I will teach you the rules. Bondi, you are experiencing Trump syndrome. 4 lines. That is the whole hearing in 4 lines. A real question about real victims. A random name is a deflection. A random name is a deflection. A law lesson that never should have been necessary. And a political attack is a closing argument. That is what the head of the Department of Justice brought to this table. That is the full extent of her engagement with a serious legal matter involving over 1,000 victims. Here's where we land. The facts are not complicated. The privacy rights of federal crime victims were violated. Federal law was violated. Nobody has been held accountable. Bondi ignored the Joint Task Force proposal completely, did not say yes, did not say no, just pretended the question never happened. She changed the subject every single time the conversation got close to something real. And a constitutional law scholar was forced to teach her rules she should have known before she ever walked into that room. Over 1,000 victims are still waiting for justice. Not one perpetrator has been prosecuted. The files are half hidden. The law is being flipped on its head. Victims exposed, perpetrators protected, and Raskin is not stopping. He and his colleagues are going to keep pushing for those 3 million hidden files. Victims can still sue. Federal law was violated, and compensation is a real legal possibility. Congress has a power to force compliance. This is not over. Every time Bondi tries the same move, attack, deflect, bring up Trump syndrome, throw out a random name, she buys herself a little time, but she is running out of room. The law has teeth, and Raskin is not done teaching. I will teach you the rules. That line is not going away. That moment, a constitutional law professor standing in front of the entire country, breaking down the most basic rules of a congressional hearing for the woman who runs the Justice Department, that moment is now part of the record. It is a snapshot of what American governance looks like right now, what the law demands on one side, what the people in power are willing to deliver on the other. 1,000 victims. 3 million files still hidden, 0 prosecutions, 0 accountability. The lesson was given, out loud, on camera, in front of everyone. If you made it this far, you already know the story is not finished. The pressure is not going away. The files are still out there. The victims are still waiting. And every deflection, every Trump syndrome, every random name thrown into a hearing room is another piece of evidence of a system fighting hard to protect the wrong people. So here is what I need from you right now. Share this video, not for the views, because people in your circle need to see this. They need to understand what just happened in that room and what it means for every person who ever trusted the law to protect them. Share it, talk about it, and don't let this moment get buried under the next news cycle. These victims deserve better than that, and so do you.